Hi everyone, welcome back in another amazing project where we're going to be building a full stack job board application. So this is the landing page of the application. So it's pretty simple landing page because we want to focus on the most important thing, which is building the application with its backend. So we can be able to sign in and sign up. So I'm going to start with the sign up because we're going to be building a multi-step form from scratch in this application. I'm going to show you how to do so. So we're going to use React hook form to be able to handle the error and to track the errors for all the fields that we created for the multi-step form. So if, for example, I add stuff like this, so I'm going to add the full name like this, just to show you how things are working. When I click on next, I'm going to be headed towards the next step. So here I can be able to add the salary and I can be able to add some scales like this. And I need to hit enter to be able to add the scale. Then I can be able to go to the next step. And here I can be able to choose the employment type. And by the way, we're going to use shadcn for the component, the UI component. We're going to use React and TypeScript, and also we're going to use Neon to be able to save our database in their servers. And also we're going to use Drizzle ORM to be able to communicate with the database. And of course, we're going to use Next.js for the framework. So let's continue adding or creating our new user. So after I click on create new account, as you can see, our account has been created into our application. So this account has been created into the server. So this is the application, but I want to access to sign in with my account. And by the way, for the authentication, we're not going to use any authentication. We're going to just create our own simple system to be able to authentify with the nickname with any password. And also we're going to use the local storage along with the database to be able to access and to know if the account is saved into the database or not. So when I click on the sign in, as you can see, we're going to have this beautiful dialog. And when we can be able to access with the nickname. So when I click on the access to the app, I'm going to be accessed to the application with my account. So this is the information of the user. So this is the part to be able to search the job, also to filter. So we just going to work with these two filters just to know how things are working. We don't want to make things even complex because the application is complex as it is. So we don't want to make things more complex than that. So also we're having the jobs as you can see, and at the bottom we're going to be able to manage and create our own pagination system as you can see. So when I go to the second page, so as you can see we're going to have just the jobs, the remaining jobs. So also we can be able to search. As you can see, the search is working fine, and also the information is going to be changing depending on the result that we're having. And also we can be able to filter. As you can see, we can be able to actually filter or add more filters. And when I click on the clear all to be able to actually delete all the filters at once just to be able to enhance the user experience. So also we can be able to toggle or untoggle the actual filter part. So let's get into the most important stuff, which is being able to actually bookmark or apply to the job if we want to. So for example, I can be able to access the job. When I click on it, we're going to be able to see more detail into the job with this cheat. So we're going to use shadcn for this. And because this job has been applied, I can be able to remove the application. So as you can see, the application is removed, And if I click on the bookmark, so we're going to have this notification, and actually we can be able to actually see all the jobs that we bookmarked, and we can be able to click on the view save jobs. So as you can see, so here we can be able to track all the jobs that we bookmarked. So we're going to use Jamstack React table to be able to create this awesome table. And here we can be able to actually update the information just from here if we want to. We can be able to access to the sheet dialog as I showed you just from here. And also because this has been applied, so we're going to have the remove the application button. So when I click on remove the application, we're going to have the apply for this job back. And as you can see, the state has been changed as well just from here. And everything that I'm doing, it is saved right away into the database. And I can be able to unbookmark the actual jobs if I want to. So as you can see, where we did have the loading spinner because the information has been saved into the database because we hit the API that we created to be able to connect with the database. And if, for example, if I reload the page just to show you that everything has been saved into the database, as you can see, we can be able to see the same information, meaning that everything is working well. So the last thing I'm going to show you is to be able to update the profile just to show you how things are working and things are working well. So I'm going to delete some of the skills. I'm going to actually add the salary. So I'm going to delete this one and click on edit profile. So as you can see, the information has been edited successfully. And if I reload the page, so the information will remain into the database. So this is what we're going to be building. So there are a lot of things that we're going to learn from this project. So it's a pretty heavy project. It took me quite a while to be able to build it, to be honest with you, but I learned so many things, and I assure you that we'll be able to learn so many things from this project. Hi, welcome back. So as you can see here in Visual Studio Code, I already created the project. I already installed Next.js and shadcn. So I'm going to show you very briefly how to be able to do this because I know that many of you know how to be able uh, to make this happening. So let's go first to the Next.js website in the installation page. So the requirement first, we need to install Node.js. So just click on this and you will be headed to this page to be able to install Node.js into your system. So after doing so, the next step is to copy this command line and paste it in your terminal. So after hitting enter, so you'll be having all of these questions. Just choose the default option because we're going to use TypeScript for the project. And of course, you can change the name of the project if you want to. So after installing all the dependencies, the next step that we should be doing is installing the shadcn component into our project. So again, into the in the installation section, we're going to choose the Next.js framework, and then we're going to copy this. We're going to use the D flag. So to avoid having these questions, and just install the default setup that is provided by shadcn. So after the installation, you should be having the component.json into the root of your project, and also you should be having the lib folder with the utils.ts, and another folder called components is going to be created once we start installing components from shadcn. And the next step that I want to show you how to be able to install the Poppins font. So it's very simple. So if we go to the layout.tsx, as you can see at the top, I added the Poppins object from this package, which is a built-in package from Next.js. And then we're going to create this, we're going to be adding this Poppins object in here, and we're going to be adding all these properties. and we're going to store them inside the pop-ins variable. And after that, here, as you can see inside this string literal, we're going to be adding the poppins variable into the class name of the body tag. So after this, what we're going to be doing inside the global.css, we're going to be adding the poppins class so we can be able to use this as a utility class inside the div that we want, as I'm going to show you. So after this, if we go to the page.jsx, as you can see, I got rid from the actual JSX that is provided by Next.js once you first installed the framework. And as you can see here, I'm adding the pop-ins inside the class name of this div, which is the parent div of our whole application. I just added this as a home page just to know that everything is working fine. And after type in npm run dev and hitting enter, so our application is working. And as you can see, we're going to have this is a home page, and as you can see, the Poppins font is successfully applied. And just as a side note, I'm using this application which I created by myself called Snippet Saver. And so this is an application that I created to be able to save the most important code snippets that I'm using for my project, like for the one that I showed you about Poppins font. So I saved it in this card, and as you can see, when I click on it, so I'm just adding all the steps needed to be able to install this, so you can be able to check it out inside the description and also I have a full tutorial in my YouTube channel. So the name of the video is called so you can find it, it's called the code snippet app. Is a full stack app, so you can know how to be able to create this if you are interested about this topic. Next, I created the simple landing page, as you can see, that we're going to be using for the application. So we're having in the navbar, so we're having the icon, the name of the application, the two buttons, sign in, sign up, and the hero section, we're having some text just to get people to use the application. And finally, we're having the find jobs now button. So as you can see, it is not looking that good because we need some colors. And to be able to add this, go to the shadcn website and head over the themes section. So here we're going to be clicking on the customize button, and you can choose whatever color that you want. So I choose the red color. So click on it and click on the copy code. So you're going to be having this dialog popping up. Just copy this code and go back to your project, and specifically we're going to go to the global.css and get rid from this code, and we're going to paste the code that we got from shadcn, and we're going to save the file. And if we go back to our website, as you can see, all the colors changed, and now things are looking much cooler. So, and also we need to install some of the things in our application. So the first thing that we should be installing is the button from shadcn. So I'm going to show you very quickly how to be able to install components. So in the search bar, so we're going to type in we're going to search for the button. And so for every component that you want to install, so in the shadcn system, we're going to be having the CLI command for each component. So because I'm using the npm package, so I choose the npm and copy this and head back to your terminal and paste your command line and hit enter. And as you can see, the button is going to be added inside the component UI folder. And also another package that we're going to be using is React icons. Just type in the npm install React icons to be able to install the package. And we're going to be using for the application, for our whole application, the icons from the React icons library. So let's close this tab. Now I'm going to show you very quickly how to be able to create this component. So here, as you can see, I added some code in here. So for each section, we're going to be adding it inside its component. Like for the navbar, as you can see, we are creating the code inside the navbar functional component, and we are going to use it inside the main div of the home functional component, which is the main functional component of our application. And we're going to do the same thing for the hero section. So here we're having the code inside this CTA section. So that's the name that I gave to it for this functional component. And we're going to call it at the top in here. And here inside this div, so this div, it's going to be for the image. And as you can see, I commented this because I'm going to have uh, some issues. So that's why I just added it here. So when I finish the project, I'm going to just add the source of the image. Uh, and we are good to go to be able to show the image of the application in the home page. So I'm going to go through this code very quickly for the navbar. So the navbar, so this is the parent div, and those are the utility classes that we are going to use. And here we're going to create the header tag, and inside of it, we're going to be adding the icon. So as you can see, we're using the icon from the React icons library. So this is how we are using it. We're importing it from this package, and inside the h1 tag, we're going to use the job spring text, which is the name of the application. And as you can see, this spring, it's going to be in another span because we want to color this by itself. And here at the bottom, we're going to have the buttons, the sign in and the sign up. And finally, we're having the CTA section. So we're having the H2 tag and the P tag. We're having the paragraph and finally the button. So, and also another thing that I didn't show you, this is, as you can see, is fully responsive. So when we change the screen of our application, everything still looks good. So after we created our landing page, the next thing that I uh, added is I made these buttons working. So I'm going to show you what's going to happen. So when I click on the sign in button, as you can see, we're going to have this beautiful dialog popping up to be able to sign into the application. So we're going to use a fake authentication system. And as I said, uh, it is not recommend to use this into the production level. So we're going to just use this for the sake of the application and to know and understand how at the basic level the authentication works. And here we're going to just use the nickname as an identifier to be able to log in to the application, and we are going to set everything up manually. So we're having the input and we're having the button. And if we don't have an account, you can click on the sign up button. So when I click on the sign up button, as you can see, we're gonna a new component it's gonna be rendered, which we are going to use for the multi-step form component. So when I click on the close, so it's just temporarily just to go back to the main page. And also when I click on the sign up button in here, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to render the multi-step form component on top of the home component so you can be able to see the multi-steps or the steps needed to be able to create our user. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to install some of the things, and we need to install the dialog component from shadcn. Again, just type in here dialog, And so we're going to use the dialog component, not the alert dialog. And head to the installation section and copy this command line and paste it in here in your terminal. So as you can see, I've already done it. And also we need to install the input component, since we're going to use the input component into our dialog. So here, as you can see, I created some of the files inside the components folder. The first one is called the multi-step forms. So I added it inside the folder just to make things organized, because I'm going to be adding other components inside the multi-step form folder. So here I'm just returning this simple GSX, and also I'm using some callback functions just to be able to change the state that I'm going to show you. And also we're having the sign in dialog functional component. So it's a pretty long component, and for this component, the only thing that I did, so I didn't create it from scratch. So what I did here, I went to the uh, to this code and I copied this code and I pasted it in here, and I did some of the adjustment needed to make the actual component look like this, including the styling using the Tailwind CSS. And it's a time saver rather than just creating things from scratch by yourself. And I'm going to explain the logic that I use to be able to make this working. And to be able to do this, we're going to start from the start, which is the page.tsx. So this is the logic that I use to make this working. So the first thing that I did, I created, before make sure to make this component as a use client, since we're going to use the use state hook. So I created this is sign up clicked. So this is sign up clicked, we're going to use it to whether we're going to render the multi-step form functional component, or we are going to render this GSX for the landing page. So we're going to start from the button, the sign up button. So when I click on the sign up button, so the sign up button is in the navbar, meaning that it is outside of this functional component. And that's where we need to use a callback function to be able to change the state, the is sign up clicked state, which is the parent inside the parent component, and to be able to lift up the state or to access to the state, we're going to use what is called the callback function, as you can see inside the prop of the navbar functional component. So inside the button, the sign up button, so when I click on the button, so this on click event listener is going to be triggered, and by itself it's going to trigger this callback function. And here we're just assigning the structure of this function. So we're saying to TypeScript that this is going to be a simple function. It's not going to return anything. So once this is triggered, it's going to trigger by itself this handle sign up click, which is this function, and it's going to set the is sign up clicked as true. So once this is set as true, because we're using this if statement, we are going to call this multi-step form component, which is coming from this component, and this is how we are going to render this multi-step form component. So that's the basic idea how we can be create that logic. And now I'm going to access to the code of this dialog. And also we're going to do the same thing when we click on the sign up button inside this dialog. So if we go to the sign in dialog here, as you can see, so this is the structure of the dialog again. So the only thing that I did, I copied this from shadcn and I pasted it in here, and I did some changes inside the class name just to make this to make it look like this. And here, as you can see, we're having inside the here inside this div, um, after the dialog header. So we're having the input, and inside the dialog footer, we're having the access to the app button, and we're having this sign up button. And as you can see here, first I'm going to start from the top of the functional components. So here again, we're adding a callback function. So when I click on the button, on the sign up button, so this on-click event listener, it's going to trigger this callback function. And if we go back to the page.tsx, here, as you can see, the sign in dialog, so it's going to trigger by itself this callback function from the navbar, and by itself, it's going to set the actual sign up as true, the state as true, which by itself is going to render this multi-step form. So we're using callback function. If you want to make this simpler, you can use a state management, but just for the sake of for this, I want to just explain how we can be able to use a callback function, because we're going to use zustand since our application is a little bit bigger and to handle state management a lot easier. So this is basically how we can be able to create this logic. And again, if we go back to the sign-in dialog, as you can see, so this is the code of the sign-on, sign-in dialog. So I can't go any further to explain all the things because the video is going to be very, very long if I do so. And I bet that you're already familiar with this, so that's why one of the requirements, if you want to follow with me in this video, you need to have some experience you already built some projects. So it's not 100% totally beginner friendly project. So this is the logic that we're going to be using to be able to do this. And the next thing that we are going to be working on, so we are going to be installing zustand for state management, but also we're going to be creating the logic to be able to create our, so to speak, the fake authentication system that we're going to be using for our application. And now when we click on the sign in button, and if, for example, I click on the access to the app and the input is still empty, so we're going to have this error. So we're going to use React hook form along with SOT to be able to manage this. And for example, let's type in something here randomly. As you can see, the error is gone. And when I click on the accept app, we're going to have this loading icon. And as you can see, we're going to have this toast notification telling us that this user wasn't found into our database. So we're not going to use a database. We're going to just use static data in our application, an array of objects to be able to work with and simulating the fetching of the data from the database so you can be able to have this result. But if, for example, I type in this nickname, which is in the array, and I click on the access to the app, so we're going to have this loading state again, and as you can see, we're having this notification, and now we are logged in with our name. And when I click on the sign out, so we're going to be completely signed out. And let's say, for example, if I want to access to the job board right away, as you can see, I'm going to be headed back towards the main page, and I'm going to have this error. So since we are going to build this by ourselves, we're not going to use any authentication system. Normally, this need to be used with a middleware, but this is why we saw first the logout button before we went to the landing page with the middleware. So this would be happening before we can go to the actual route. But because, as I said, we are building it ourselves just simulating the system, so this is what we are going to have. So this is the actual system that we're going to be adding, and as you can see, it is working smoothly. So before I start talking about this, the first thing that we need to do, we need to install the ZOD and the React hook form with the resolvers. Of course, we're going to be installing ZOD, and also we're going to be installing Toast, the Toast notification. So I'm going to start by the Toast notification. So let me turn the dark mode on. Uh, to be able to install this here, they are giving us the steps needed to be able to install Toast. So the first thing, as I showed you, we need to copy this and paste it in here and install the actual package. After that, we need to add this toaster object in the layout.tsx, which is something that I've done. So let's go to the layout.tsx, and I added it above the children. So make sure to add it in here, otherwise you will have a hydration error. So and we can be able to use the toast anywhere we want by first calling the use toast hook from this package, and then we can be able to use it like this. So I'm going to show you how I used it in our application. So the next thing that I want to show you is the route, the job board route, the page.tsx. Just to be able to create a new route, all you have to do is to create the name of the route inside this folder and create the page.tsx. So I'm not going to start talking about the code that we're having, but I'm going to start from the sign in dialog. So inside the sign in dialog, as you can see, there are a lot of code in here, but I'm going to make my best to explain what's happening in here. So the first thing that here that we're doing, we are defining the schema that we're going to be using for our nickname. And then we are going to infer the type or all the types from the sign-in schema, which is this nickname as a string. So if we hover over it, as you can see, this is the structure of the sign-in form values, the nickname as a string. And here if we go here, we are going to initialize the React hook form. So we're going to use the use form hook for this, and then we are going to pass the sign-in forms value, as you can see. And so we are going to deconstruct this, and we are going to be able to access to the elements. So we're going to be using the register, the handle submit, and the form state, which has the errors object to be able to access to the error that we saw in the sign-in dialog. So here we're going to use the register in the input. So if we go to the GSX, so we're going to go to the input tag, and we're going to use the register with the same keyword that we used uh, when we defined our schema. So make sure to do this, very important to be able to track this keyword. And so after doing this, so we're going to add at the bottom of the input tag, we're going to add the error object that we defined, that we deconstructed from the use form hook to be able to show the message that we defined at the top in the form schema using ZOD. So this is what we are going to be using as an error. So when the error happens. So, and after that, we're going to have the onSubmit function, which is going to be linked to the form tag. So as you can see, so the form tag is going to be wrapped between all of this. So when we click on the onSubmit function, this is going to be triggered and our function is going to be called as a result. So this is the try and catch block that we're going to be using to be able to see if the actual user exists into the database. So here, as you can see, we are going, so since we didn't create the database yet, so we're going to use a promise. So another thing that I missed is the installation of zustand. So we're going to use zustand as a state manager so to be able to do this. So as you can see here, we are going to call the fetch all users and the set users from the use user store. So if we go to the hooks folder, as you can see, we're having, sorry, it's not this one, the use user store. So this is our code to be able to manage our state, as you can see. So we are going to use the create object from zustand to be able to create the user store. So we're going to have the loading user, the loading update. So we're not going to use this right now. Uh, so let them as they are because I defined them inside the user store interface. But what I want to talk about is the actual user. So for the user, as you can see inside the interface user store, so this is how we defined the actual structure of the user store. So for the user, it's going to be either user that is imported from the types as I showed you, uh, or null. And the set user, it's going to be this structure, which it's going to be a function that is going to accept a user prompt that has the user type or the null type. And we're having the fetch all users, which is a promise that is going to return an object of users that each object has the user type or the null type. So and the fetch all users, it's going to return a promise, as you can see. So we're going to use the resolve. So everything goes well after 1,300 milliseconds. Then we are going to return the all saved users from the user data.ts. So by the way, we are going to use this just to simulate the fetching of the data and make sure that our logic in the front end is working without having to build the back end. So after that, we're going to return the all users. And if the error happens, we're going to return this console log and we're going to turn null since the function can be able to return user, an array of users or null as we defined in the user store interface. So I apologize for this because I had to explain this before I start explaining what's happening in the sign-in dialog.tsx. So here in the try and catch block, we are going to set the loading state as true, and we are going to wait for the actual array from the fetch all users. So if the result is not null, meaning that we're having data, then we can be able to safely access to this part of the if statement. So here we are going to find the actual user by using the find method. And if the find user is not null, meaning that we found the object, then we're going to update the set the user by using the set user. Then we're going to use the push method and we're going to use the route instance to be able to go to the job board route. And then we are going to create our object in the local storage. Another thing that I didn't show you is the local storage. So when I click on the sign in and I sign in successfully with this nickname, as you can see, the logout user, so we're creating this object to be able to know if we are logged in or not. So by working with this system, you will be able to learn how to use the local storage perfectly. So here we are going to create our object inside the local storage and we are going to stringify our area, our object to be able to store it inside the local storage. And then we're going to use the toast to be able to show the toast as we saw. Otherwise, we are going to have this error saying that the user was not found in our database. And to make it read, so they have the variant property, so we're going to use the destructive. And if we're having some casual error, so we're going to have this toast notification and we're going to use this action property, which is going to have the toast action button to be able to refetch the data and reload everything. After that, the loading state it's going to be false. And if we go to the dialog, so here in the dialog footer inside the button, so as you can see, the loading state it's going to be linked to the disabled property of the button. So when the loading is true, the button is going to be disabled. So if the loading is true, we're going to add this from the elucid react component to be able to have this spinner. Otherwise, when the loading is false, we're going to just render the access to the app span. So this is for the sign in dialog. So now, so let me close this. And now what we're going to do, we're going to go to the job board component. So here, as you can see, we're having some code. So the first code that I'm going to talk about is this use effect hook. So what that does is when the component is loaded first, we want to check if the actual object that we logged in the local store. So we're going to rely on this to know if the user has already been logged in. So this is how we will know. So if we get something from the local storage, so we're going to check the local storage by using the get item. So we're going to use this key name. So if it is not, we're going to use the push method to go to the main page. And after that, we're going to show the toast notification saying the user to log in first. And the router, it's going to be a dependency. And here we're going to just render a simple GSX to render the user name. And inside the button, when we click on the button, this is going to be triggered. So first we need to add the states, the user and the set user from the use user store, the router. So we're going to create an instance from the use router hook and the toast from the use toast. So we're going to use the try and catch block. So we're going to see if the user exists in the local storage. So if it is, we're going to clear the user data and we're going to remove the object from the local storage. We're going to navigate back to the route and then we're going to show the toast notification as a success. Otherwise, we're going to show this toast. And if an error happens, also we're going to show this toast. And this is basically how we can be able to do this. And another thing that I didn't show you is the static data. So this is the all saved users, and this is all the objects that we're going to be using. So here the user is, we're going to simulate it as if that is coming from the database. So by doing this whole logic, we can be able to simulate all of this that is coming from the database, but mainly we built and created our system to make this working. And also another thing that I didn't mention is that if the user is still logged in, meaning that if the user object is still in the local storage, so we're going to have the access to the board, so without having to sign in again. So as you can see in the main page, so when I click on the access to the button, and even if I log out, so we're gonna still have this just to make things much smoother to the user. So let me go back to the page.jsx to explain how I did it. So in the navbar functional component, the first thing that we need to do, we need to extract the element from the local storage. And we are going to actually store the object inside the logged user. And along with that, we're going to use these states. So I created this function called the access to uh, to app function. So here we're going to use the try and catch block. So we're going to, so if the logged user is not null, so we're going to parse this logged user. Otherwise, we're going to set it to null. And then we're going to use the job schema that's safe parse. So that's the benefit of using ZA to validate the if the whatever that we're having inside the logged user object is validated by the schema that we created in our type. So if we go back to the user type, so we're going to see if it matches the schema that we created in our in the job schema. So that's the benefit of using Zod. And so if the validate success is success, then we are going to access to the object. And in Zod, to be able to access to the object, we need, so it's going to be inside the data property, and we're going to update our user by using the set user. And then we're going to go to the job board. And also to be able to show the access to the board button. So we're going to rely on the logged user. So if this is not a string, or if this is null, we're going to show the sign in and the sign up button. So when this is not null, meaning that we're having the object, it is still in the local storage, then we are going to use this button. And we are going to actually call the function that I showed you, which is the access to the of function. So as you can see, the actual system is a little bit complicated, and uh, and not to mention that I didn't use any password system or anything like this. So that's the baseline of knowing how the authentication system works, and you can build off of this if wanna make this system much more sophisticated. So after creating our, so to speak, fake authentication system, so the next thing that we are going to be creating is the multi-step form. So when I click on the sign up button, so this is the first part of our multi-step form. So first I want to just show you and explain um, what's the system that we're going to be using to make this working. So as you can see here, when I click on the next button, so we're going to go to the to the step 2 component, and as you can see, the colors for this the second step are changing. And when I click on the close button, as you can see, we're gonna go back to the main page. So let's go back to our code. So here inside the multi-steps form, as you can see, we're having a bunch of code here inside the multi-steps form. So I'm going to explain each thing here. And as you can see here, I created these components. For each step, we're going to have it inside its own functional component. It's inside its own file, just to make sure our code is cleaner rather than just putting everything in this multi-steps form functional component. So the same thing I did for the step 2 and the same thing that I did for the step 3. So for each functional component, we're going to be adding the elements needed, the inputs and the drop downs needed for each function. So that's why we separated our code like this. So let's go to the multi-steps form.tsx. So we're going to start, of course, from the top. As you can see, we are importing the necessary libraries to work with, but also we're importing the step component that I just showed you, the step 2, step 3, and the step 1. And these are the icons that we're going to be using, and also the card component from shadcn. So make sure to install this. So all you have to do here, so um, in the shadcn website, just type in here the card component and copy this CLI in your command line and paste it in here and hit enter. And as you can see, I installed successfully the card component. So after this, we're going to create our array. So this is the array of objects of the steps that we're going to be using, and it's going to be of type step. So this is the definition of each object. So the ID is going to be number, the label is going to be string, the icon is going to be a React node, and we're going to have two properties, the active class and the inactive class. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do with these classes. So these are the objects as you can see. So and this is very useful. So if I want, for example, to change anything with the steps, so all I have to do is to change the thing that I want, like for example, the name, just from this array. So inside the multi-step form, as you can see, we created this current step state. So this is where we're going to be saving our state. And since we're going to have three steps, so of course we're going to start by the step by the number one. And these functions, so these functions that we're going to be using to be able to go forward and backward, to increment the current step or to decrement it. And as you can see, so for incrementing the current step, so we're going to use the math.min. So this is a built-in function from JavaScript. So we're going to use the math property. And the reason why we're going to do so, because we want to limit the incrementation maximum to 3. And the same thing that we did for the handle back function. So we're going to use the max method and the minimum the minimum number that we are going to not go down from is 1. So here the GSX, so here the header, and this is the icon, the close icon, as you can see. Before what I just added is the close text just to show you how things are working. But now I'm gonna create this icon from React icon library. I'm going to include the onClick event listener that is going to be linked to the onClose multi-form callback function to be able to change the state inside the parent component to go back to the actual main page. So here we're having the div where we're going to be wrapping all the steps. If we go back to the sign up or the multi-step form. So this is the part that is responsible to render. So this is the part that is responsible to render all of the elements in here. So I'm going to do my best to explain how we are going to manage uh, are going to be to change the colors when we move forward or backward. And this is where we're going to be adding the active class property that I showed you at the top inside the object. So the idea here, when we're going to loop through each object inside the array, and when the current step is equal to the step that ID from the array, we're going to use the active class from the property inside this literal type, or this string literal that we're going to use inside the class name to be able to activate all the utility classes that we're having in this property. So, and the same, so it's going to be for, um, so it's going to be for the whole rounded circle, as you can see. So we're going to use the card tag for this from shadcn, and also inside the card we're having the icon, and we're going to do the same thing. So if these are equal, the text is going to be white, and here we're going to use the inactive class to make all the elements that don't meet this condition, like these two steps at this time, because the current step is 1. These two steps, the step number 2 and 3, are going to be gray. And we're going to do the same thing for the label. So it's very important to work with this just to let the user know which step is in and to enhance the user experience, of course. So the UI is very important. And at the bottom, we're going to have this div to be able to render each component depending on the current step. So if the current step is equal to 1, we're going to render the step 1 component. The same with 2 and 3. And finally, at the bottom, we're going to have the two buttons, the previous and the next button. So the previous button is going to be the onClick event listener. It's going to be linked to the handle back function. And it's going to be disabled if the current step is equal to 1. And the next button, so it's if the current step is different than 3, we're going to use the next word. So this is what we're having. So once we come to the final step, we are going to have the create new account text instead of next. So this journey operator, we're going to handle this for us. So this is basically how we can be able to create the multi-step form. This is the cornerstone of or the system behind building this multi-step form. So the only thing that we're going to be adding, we're going to fill this up like for each step, we're going to be adding all the inputs and the elements so the user can enter the information needed so he or she can be able to create the user and access to the application. So after we created the basic setup of our multi-step form, the next thing that we need to do, we need to fill up the components for each step. So the first step, we're going to have the nickname, as you can see, and the full name. So these are just simple inputs. And as you can see at the bottom, we put the error element here just to uh, leave the space for the error and know how things are looking when we start using use hook form library with Zod. So that's the first step. And if we click on next, so the personal details step or the second step, we're going to have the salary. So this input, as you can see, it's going to be formatted automatically. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do this. For the experience, it's going to be a simple drop down to be able to choose your experience. And here we are going to add the skills in a form of tags. So this is going to be, so we're going to be creating the logic as you can see when I type something and hit enter. So it's going to be like this. And also if I type in the backspace, it's going to be deleted automatically. And if I want to delete the scale or the tag, I can click on here and it's going to be deleted. So we're going to be building this by ourselves, so we're not going to use any library whatsoever. And the next step and the final step, so we're going to have the employment type. So it's going to be a multi-selection drop down. So we're going to be building this as well. So it is pretty complicated to build this. So I'm going to explain everything in between to be able to create this dropdown. And finally, we're going to have this dropdown to be able to choose the seniority level. So let's go back to the VS Code. And so we're going to start from the step1.jsx. So as you can see here, I added this JSX, and here we're going to render these two inputs. So it's very simple. So we're going to use the label tag from the shadcn. So if you didn't if you have not installed this, so make sure to go to the shadcn website and type in the label component, and at the bottom copy this and paste it in terminal and hit enter, and you should have the label component in your project. So here we are using the input, and I'm adding this height just to make the height of the input a little bit longer. For me, the default height is not uh, for me, it's my personal point of view. It doesn't look that good. I want the input to be a little bit larger in terms of height, so uh, so that it looks good into the UI. And the same thing that I did for the file name. So nothing complex in the first step. And if we go to the second step, so the second step, we're having a bit of code here because we're having three elements. So if we go back to our multi-step form, so we're having the salary, we're having the experience, and we're having the skills. So for the salary, so of course, first we need to create some states to be able to save wherever that we select in or type in. So here we're going to create the salary as a string type and the experience um state to be able to save wherever that we clicked on. So I'm going to get into this function after I go to the GSX. So this function it's going to be doing the formatting for us. So we're going to use the parse float function, and we are going to replace the white space with the comma. And if somehow this um, is not filled, so it's going to be replaced by 0. And this is what we are going to use to be able to format this number. So all of this is going to be returned by the format to USD function. And here we're going to use this format function to be able to take whatever that you are typing inside the input and uh, do the formatting by using this function and updating the salary state. So here inside the GSX, so this part is the for the salary. So we're having the label and the input. So the value is going to be linked, of course, to the salary state. And whenever that we are typing on the input, this is going to be triggered. This handle salary change function that I showed you up here, it's going to be triggered to be able to do the formatting and updating the salary by using the set salary state. And also we're using the min property just to make sure that the salary cannot be negative. So this is for the salary. Then we're going to go to the experience drop down. So the drop down, we're going to use the select component. So again, if we go to the shadcn website and type in select, so the first thing that I do, like for these type of components, I just copy this after installing first the component and I paste it in my code, and I just do the necessary changes to get the outcome that I want from the project that I'm building. So here, if we go at the bottom here, as you can see, so nothing changed heavily here. So the only thing that I added is the value and the on value change that are going to be linked to these states that I created above the function. And inside the select content, so we're gonna add the select items like this. So whenever I'm clicking on one of these items, the value inside each select item, it's going to be updated and stored inside the experience state. And we're going to be able to show wherever that we are updating inside this span, which is within the select trigger component, which is this part. So when I click on this. So this is going to be shown because it has been saved inside the experience state, and we are going to get it back in return and render it into our UI. And finally, so this is going to take a little bit of work and a little bit of explanation because as you can see, if we collapse this, so we're having from the 86 line to the 163 line. So I didn't take this functional component inside another file, which something that I should do, but I added it in here just to be able to explain and not get overwhelmed by all of these components that I added in the second step. So for the functional component skills, so as you can see, we're having multiple tags. So the tags state it is a string of, it is an array of strings, and this input value we're going to be using for the input as we did, like as I showed you in the other inputs, and the input ref and the span ref. So once we get into the code, then I'm going to explain why we use this. So for the tags to be able to, so the tags array, we're going to be storing each time that we hit enter, we're going to be storing the tag or the skill that after we hit in enter. So first, let's go to the actual GSX. So this is how we are gonna use this. So we're gonna use the tags array that I showed you, and we're gonna use the map function since it is an array, and we are going to map to each element, and we're gonna use the batch component. Also, make sure to install this from shadcn to be able to render wherever that it is inside the tags array by using all of these utility classes. And inside the batch component, we're going to use the span tag to be able to render each tag. And also inside of it, as I showed you, we're going to have the close button. So this is the button. So we're going to put it inside the span. So we're not going to use it as a button tag. And here, whenever we click on the button, we're going to trigger the remove tag function by passing inside of it the index from this array. And this is the input, as you can see. So the value of the input is going to be linked to the input value state, and the onChange event listener, it's going to be very simple. So whenever we are updating the input, we're going to use the set input value to be able to update the main state, which is the input value. And on the key down, uh, meaning that when we hit enter, we're going to call this add tag function. So this is for the placeholder, the class name, and this style. So we use this styling just to make sure that the input, so just to show you very briefly, if we use the border just to show the actual, so this is the input, and this input if we add multiple inputs like this, as you can see, it's going to go at the bottom. And to be able to fix this problem, so I added this style property in here. The width, it's going to be dependent on the length of the input. Just to show you, for example, as type in the width, it's going to expand depending on the length of the input. So we're going to use the style, this inline style inside the input tag. So now I'm going to show you how to be able to add the elements. So inside the add tag, as you can see, we're going to have this function. So we're going to use the arrow function. And here we're going to extract whatever that we are typing inside from the E object. So we're going to use the trim function to remove any white spaces. And if we hit enter and the trim value is filled, then we can be able to access to this part to be able to add the tag that we want after hitting enter. And then we are going to reset the input value by clearing the input field. So I'm using this just to log things out. And if we use the backspace and if the input value is empty and the tags length is more than 0, then we can be able to erase the last element inside the tags by using the slice method. So this is what's happened if, like, if I hit enter and I hit the backspace. So as you can see, the last element is going to be removed, and because of this if statement. And the remove tag is going to be uh, triggered whenever we click on the close button, as you can see. And we're going to use the filter method to be able to do this. And so this use effect, it's going. I created to be able to adjust the input width based on the text length. So as I showed you, so this is what we're gonna use to be able to actually expand the width when the input length expands as well. So as you can see, there is a little bit of code and a little bit of work to be able to make this working. But as you can see, everything is working fine. So the last thing that I'm going to show you is the step 3. So the step 3, we're having the employment type functional component and we're having the seniority level functional component. So for the employment type component, as you can see, we're going to use some of the code here. We're going to use the employment option type. And first, we need to install the drop-down menu. So again, go back to the shadcn website and type in the drop-down and install this. Use the CLI. So after this, we're going to import these two elements. We're going to be using them inside the GSX. Of course, we're going to import all the elements from the drop down component from shadcn. Also, we're going to use the select components for the seniority level. So here we are going to define the state type for selected employment option, which is it's going to be a record type of the employment option, which is this one. So it is a union type, or this drop-down menu checkbox item prompts from the Radix UI. And here we're going to call these two components. So for the employment type, as you can see, we're gonna create the selected types array, and as soon this is going to be used or mounted, or before it's going to be mounted, so we're gonna use the reduce function to be able to actually add up all the elements or all the options that we created in here. And of course, default time, it's going to be the default option. So this handle check change, so we're going to use it to be able to handle the change whenever we click on the element. And so this is for the remaining code. As you can see, we're using the drop-down menu. And finally, we're going to use the seniority level functional component, and this is how we're going to do it. And here, as you can see, we're going to use the get senior level functional component or function, sorry, and we're going to use it to be able to show it inside the span trigger. So depending on whatever that we're having, inside the seniority level, we want to return a different output. So that's why we use the switch function, switch state inside this function to be able to do this. So as you can see, uh, there is a lot of work to be able to create all of this. And to be honest with you, I was a little bit tired to be able to explain all of this because there was a lot of code to do this. So anyway, so the next step that we need to do, we need to make this working, and we're gonna use the React hook form and the Zod library to be able to gather all the information and to track all the elements that we're using in here and make sure that they are valid before we can pass them into the database. So now our multi-step form is working. So we included the React hook form library to be able to validate the data that the user is typing. So just to show you, like for example, if we leave these empty, so as you can see, we're going to have the error and we can't go to the second step unless we type in all the elements in here. So I'm going to type these randomly. When I click on next, as you can see, I'm going to go to the second step, and here we are logging out the first step. So just to see that everything is working fine. So here, if I click on next, for example, as you can see, I'm going to have the errors and I'm not going to go to the third page. So as you can see, our amount is formatted automatically. So to be able to create this, we're going to use a library called a popular library called React number format, I think. And here also we included the validation for the skills. To be honest with you, this took me quite a while to be able to figure this out. So if I add something here and I hit enter, as you can see, the error is gone. Then I can go safely to the next step. So here, as you can see, so there is no need to validate this because we're having at least one element that has been selected by default. So if I select, for example, the part-time and I select the medium level and I click on the create new account, as you can see, we're having step 3 data. So we're having all the data in here. And also I didn't point this out. We're having also the data in another object. So eventually, I want to first show you the all the changes that I did to be able to make this working. And eventually, at the end, we need to gather all these elements inside one object so we can be able to add it into the users array so we can access to the job board uh, route safely. But now let's go back to the VS Code. So it's going to take a while to be able to explain this because I made so many changes. And to be honest with you, it was a little bit of a grind to be able to figure that out because we're going to use React Hook Form and it has many features that we need to be familiar with. But we're going to learn a ton of things by in this case. So the first thing that we should do, we should install these. So make sure to install the hook form resolvers and the Zod. So we already installed Zod. So here, as you can see, we're going to import them from here. And the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to create a schema for each step. So the step 1 schema, so this is the schema, the nickname and the full name. The step number 2, this is the full schema. And as you can see for the experiences, so we're going to use an enum since we're having a drop down. And the skills, we're going to use an array. So since we're going to store each skill or each tag inside the array, so we're going to use the array built-in method from the Zod library, and at least it has to be one. And finally, the step 3 schema. So this is the schema. We're going to use the enum property or function, and the same thing for the seniority level. So we are going to typecast all the types from each schema, and we are going to infer them and save them inside their types, and then we are going to gather all the types inside one type, which is the multi-step form data, because this is what we're going to use here at the bottom to be able to have uh, type safe uh, elements, but also it's going to help us with like when we want to work with the components, as I'm going to show you, we can be able to access to the properties safely because we already defined all the schemas. So that's the advantage of using Zod and React Hook form. And the default values are going to be all this inside the user form object. So after that, as you can see inside the onSubmit function, but before, I want to just show you this turning operator. So we are going to use or rely on the current step to be able to use the schema depending on the step, so you can be able to use it inside the use form hook. So if the current step is 1, we're going to just use the step 1 schema. Otherwise, we're going to use the step number 2. And if if the current step is different than 2, so it's going to be 3. So we're going to use the step 3 schema. So after that, here in the onSubmit function, so depending on what you are going to use as a schema, uh, we're going to log out the data. So we're going to just log out the portion of the data that has been validated with the current step, because for this we used only the step 1 schema. So that's why we, as I showed you inside the console log, we've been able to show the object of the first step. And then we're gonna go to we're gonna call the handle next function. So this is how we are going to handle this. So this is the change that I did. And here, as you can see, in each component, I added these props. And I'm going to show you why we added these props. So I could use the form provider and use the context API just that is provided by the actual React Hook form library, but just to see how we're going to use all the uh, elements from the use form hook. So that's why I decided to use props. So there is not a big of a deal because we're going to just be at the first layer of the child component. So we're not going to have the problem of the prop drilling. So if we go to the step 1, so the step 1 component, it's going to have the register property and the errors property. So let's go to the step 1 functional component that accepts these properties. And we defined the step 1 props. So the register, it's going to be this type, and the errors, it's going to be this type. So these are from the React Hook form. And after that, we're going to use the register object, and we're going to add the nickname just to show you what I want to mean. What I want it to mean is like, for example, if I because we using the multi-step form data schema, I can be able to access to the properties safely, and just by so we're going to use leverage the VS Code functionalities or functionality to be able to access to the properties very safely, and I can select the nickname very quickly. And here we're going to use the errors object dot nickname. So the same thing, if I do this, as you can see, I'm gonna have all the properties that I defined previously inside the multi-form data. So that's a good thing. And also, I did the same thing for the name input. So after that, we're going to go to, so let me save the actual component. We're going to go to the step 2. As you can see, we are going to pass down a lot of things from the use form hook. And the reason for that is we're going to use this controller object, and but mainly for the skills. If we go all the way down at the bottom, so we are going to handle the errors, and also we're going to track everything that we're doing since it is a customized element. So we're going to do this by ourselves. So that's why we're going to use the set value, the error, the watch, and the clear errors. So I'm going to explain why we did this inside the functional component. But first, I want to just talk about the salary component. So first we defined the structure of the prompt of the step 2 functional component. And for the salary, we're going to use the controller component. And also notice here, when I do this, I can be able to access safely to all the types that we defined inside the user form data type. So that's a cool thing. And here, as you can see, we're going to use the numeric format that is from the React number format. So make sure to install this by using the npm install. And so those are the properties that I'm going to use. And to be able to render this custom element or input, we're going to use the render function from the controller component provided by React Hook Form. So here we're going to return the error if there is one. So here we're having the experience functional component, and we're going to pass in the control. So we're going to do the same thing. So we got rid from the states that we defined the experience and the set experience. And we're gonna do the same thing, pretty much the same thing. We're gonna use the same logic, so it's a little bit different. So we're gonna keep the code, and we're gonna add the render function, and we're going to put inside of it the select uh, tags. And here we're going to use the control from the prompt. So here is the thing that took me quite a while to be able to make it work. So as you can see here, we're going to pass down the set value, the errors, the watch, and the clear errors. So I'm gonna start by the watch method. So these states are gonna be the same. So we're gonna use the watch, and we're going to use the scales property just to be able to watch to track what's happening inside the input, since it is a custom input that we created by ourselves. And also it's going to help us to re-render the component whenever we change stuff in it. So we're gonna use this skills array, and we're gonna use it inside this div, and to be able to render all the tags that we added inside this array. And also we are going to do many changes inside the add tag function. So here we are going to actually store these skills inside the current skills, and we're gonna, so instead of using the tags as I showed you, the tags area, we're gonna use the current skills. And here we are going to update the value by using the set value. And we're going to use the skills key, and we're going to add uh, the elements. And then we're going to clean our input value, and we're going to clear the errors. Since we are doing this by ourselves, um, we are every time that I add a tag, the problem that I found is the error is still there. So to be able to fix this, we're going to use the clear errors method that is provided by React Hook Form. So of course we're going to use the skills key. And also the same thing here inside this if statement. So whenever we are hitting the backspace, so we're going uh, to store. So we're gonna do a deep copy of the skills, and we're gonna store it inside the skills, new skills, and then we're going to delete the last item by using the pop function. And again, we're gonna use the set value to be able to update or re-render the actual element inside the use form hook. And also we did the same thing for the remove tag. So we are going to use the scales here, and we're going to use the set value. So finally, we're going to go to the step 3. So the step 3, we're going to pass down the get values, the control, and the set value. So here we're having a pretty complex component, which is the employment type component, because we need to select, it is a multi-selection component. So again, we're going to use the control and the set value and the get values. So here, as you can see, we're going to use the get values to be able to extract all the elements that from the use form hook, and we're going to um, store them inside the currently selected. So we're going to extract all the tabs that we defined, which are these elements, and they are going to be stored inside the currently selected. And here, as you can see, we're going to update the employment types key by using the set value. And also, again, we're going to use the controller function, as you can see, and also inside the seniority level, we're going to use um, the control method or the control parameter, and also we're going to use it, as you can see, to be able to track everything that we are doing inside all these elements, and to make sure that our object that we are going to send to the database is valid. So as you can see, I went a little bit too fast to be able to explain this, but honestly, if you want to understand this, you need to practice uh, for a while to be able to understand this, especially when you use this library called use React form. But as you can see, it's very handy and it's very type safe, and also it saves you a lot of headaches, especially if you want to manage errors. So the last element that we need to do, another thing that I need to add is I need to make sure that the snake name is unique, so is not found into the array, the user's array, which is the simulation of the database. And also I need to add the new state called user data to be able to actually gather all the objects inside one element to be able to add it inside the user data once everything is valid and the user clicks on the create new account. So now we completed our multi-step form. So I'm going to show you the whole demonstration and how we can be able to create the user when everything is valid. And then we can be able to log in with this newly created user. So I'm going to type in these names, and I'm gonna click next, and I'm going to add because because I did a lot of testing, so that's why they're gonna be saved by the browser, and I'm going to add one skill like this just randomly, and click on next, and I'm going to choose another employment type, and also I'm going to add the role. So the role input I forgot it, so I added it. And so when I click on the create new account, as you can see, we're gonna have the loading spinner, and we're gonna be added towards uh, the job board route. And as you can see, we're having our name. And if we log out and go to the sign in and want to log in with this nickname and click on access to the app, so as you can see, we can be able to access to the from the user that we newly created, which means that everything went well. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you all the things that I did to make this working. So we're going to start from the multi-steps form.tsx. And the first thing that I did, I created this new user. So we need a state where we're going to be saving each time that we are typing or changing the elements in our multi-step form, we need to save the data. So this is where we're going to be saving our data, and it's going to be of a user type. So all of these, so we have to add all of these parameters which are mandatory, and for the ones that we used union types, so we need to add a default type or a default element for the seniority level and the employment types parameter. And so I'm going to get into this. So we are importing this, or we are deconstructing this from this use user store hook that we created by using the zustand state management. So after doing this, we are going to go to these two functions. So these two functions, we're going to use them inside this update state user state function, which is going to accept this data parameter, and we use the partial utility type from TypeScript just to make all the parameters, as you can see from the multi-step form data, as not mandatory. And then we're going to use the set new user setter to be able to update the elements. So we're gonna use the three dots just to update the previous state, and we're gonna be adding the elements depending on the field that we are in. So we're gonna use the data that full name, and we're gonna add the this object. So the same thing that we're gonna do for the other parameters. And so this is how we are going to update our new user object. And each time, so to be able to call this, so we are going to call it inside the onSubmit function. So each time that we click on next, this function is going to be called to be able to update the new user. So only this is going to be called the onSubmit function. It's going to be called only if, for example, in the first step, only if these two inputs are correct. So we can be able to use this function safely without worrying about the data. And here finally, in the third step, in the else block, which is the third step, we are going to add a new user. So this add new user, it is coming from, if we go back up here, we're going to use it from this hook. So this add new user, it's a new function that I created to be able to add the new user, which is going to return a promise of an object success as a Boolean, and it's going to accept the user as a parameter to be able to add it in the array. So we're doing this just to simulate that we are working with a database. And also when we are going to set things up with the database, it's going to be a lot easier because we already built successfully the logic. So here what we're going to do inside this function, so it's going to be an async function, and we're going to update the load and update state as true because we're going to use it to be able to show the spinner. And here we're going to create a promise that's going to return an array of users. And then we are going to, here we're going to just return the all saved users, which is a static um, data from the user data.ts. So here, as you can see, we're going to use what's returned from here inside the all users, and we're going to add the user and everything, the new element or the whole array that is updated is going to be stored inside the updated user, and then we are going to update the all users states, which is a new state that I created here in this hook. As you can see, uh, the all users, it's going to have a type of users as an array with the brackets, and as a default value, it's going to have the all saved users. And finally, we're going to return the object, which is a simple success of type Boolean. And if it is an error, we're going to return false. And finally, the loading update is going to be set to false. So let's go back to the multi-step form. And this is what we are doing. So we're going to call this new function that I just showed you in here. And it's going, so the return is going to be this one because we already defined the type of the promise. And if the result that success is true, then we can be able to update the user object that that we use to be able to log in. And we're going to create a new object inside the local storage. Also, we based on that for the login. Otherwise, we can't. We can't log in because it hasn't been saved inside the local storage. And then we are going to go to this route. So after that, we're going to return or show this toast notification. Otherwise, if an error happens, we're going to show this toast instead. So this is basically how we can be able to create this. And as you can see, it was a pretty tedious work to do, but it's something worth learning. And if you have a project to be able to create a multi-step form, so you're not going to have any troubles, and you can be able to do it faster. So after we created our sign in and sign up system, so the next thing that I added is the navbar inside the job board route. So this is the navbar. So we're having the name and the logo, some links in here. So we're gonna work on this. And also we're having the light mode and the dark mode. So we're gonna use shadcn for this. And then if I click on this, as you can see, I'm gonna have the name and also the button to be able to edit the profile. So we're gonna create a dialog for this. The view save job, so we're gonna use a table. So we're gonna use 10 stack table for this, as I showed you in the demo. And we're having the exit the app button. So when I click on it, as you can see, I'm gonna be logged out. And when I sign in with another nickname, for example, and I access to the app, as you can see right now, I've been accessed with this nickname and the name is going to be totally different. So first, I want to show you how to be able to install the dark mode. So it's pretty simple. So for those of you who just started this journey, and I think a lot of you know how to install this. So inside the shadcn, so we need to install this next themes package, and then we need to copy this and create a new component called theme provider. So if we go to the components folder, so I created this theme provider.jsx, I just paste the code in here, and then the next step, we need to wrap our children with this theme provider component. So this is what I did. If we go to the layout.tsx, as you can see, our children is wrapped with the theme provider. And of course, we need to import the theme provider from the theme provider component that we just created from here. And next, we need to add our toggle, our drop down. So just copy this and go to the app folder and here it is. So this is our file and I just paste the code in here. And the only slight change that I did for the variant of the button to avoid having the borders around this icon, I just added the ghost as a variant. So that's basically how to be able to install the actual dark theme. So let's close these tabs. So now I'm going to show you all the files that I added inside the components folder. So the first one is the navbar.jsx. So as you can see, so this is the actual navbar. And so the JSX is like this. So we're having this parent div with this all of these utility classes, and we're setting the height as 74 pixel. So the app name logo functional component, I created it outside of the component just just to make the code cleaner. And we used the same structure that we used in the landing page. In fact, what I did, just copied this and I pasted it inside the landing page. So this is what I did. And after that, we're having these two buttons, the two links, the career resources, and the about. So we need to create a dialog for this. So it's pretty simple to build this up. And then we're having the mode toggle, the functional component that I showed you. So we're going to call it from here. And we're having the profile dropdown. So the profile dropdown, as you can see, I created it inside the drop downs folder because we're going to be adding other drop downs like the sorting and the and another drop down as well. So there are going to be three drop downs that I created for this application. So this is the actual code. So first we need to do all the imports necessary imports to be able to use them and make this functional component working. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to import or deconstruct our hook, and we're going to access to the user and the set user. Because as I showed you, when I click on the exit the app, we need to log out. So, and this is basically the function that's going to handle this. So first we're going to create try and catch block, and we are going to get the item from the local storage. And if the is logged item is not null, as you can see, it can be either string or null. So meaning that we found the object, we're going to clear the user data by setting the user state as null, and also we're going to remove the item from the local storage. And we're going to go back to the home page, and we're going to show the toast notification. Else we're going to show this one. Otherwise, if there is an error somehow, we're going to show this toast notification. And this is the actual GSX of the actual dropdown. Again, if the only thing that I do, and just to save up some time, what I do, I just go in here and I copy the boilerplate code provided by shadcn. I just do the necessary adjustments. So here, as you can see, I use the badge here inside the drop down menu trigger, and it's going to be fully rounded. So to make it rounded fully, we're going to use this utility classes rounded full. And then to be able to access to the first letter, we're going to just use the JavaScript slice method to be able to access only to the first character of the user's name. And then here we're going to use this drop down menu label to show the name. And here we're having the two drop-down items, the edit profile and the view save jobs. So we're going to work on these later on. And then in the final drop-down menu item, when I click on this is going to be triggered as I showed you, and the user is going to be logged out and go to the menu or the home page. So this is our navbar. As you can see, everything is working well. So after we created the navbar, the next component that I added is this component to show all the information of the user, the name, the role, and the personal details and the skill. So the information that we added in the multi-form sign-in system, all the information are going to be shown in here. And also, for example, if I sign out and I sign in with another account, as you can see, we're going to have different information. And also, I want to show you another thing. If we sign up, for example, so let's sign up very quickly just to show you all the elements and the component or the profile component. So I'm going to select three elements. I'm going to change this and I'm going to type in software engineer. So I think, so I misspell it. So anyways, and I'm gonna click on create new account. And as you can see, we're going to have the information that we added right in the profile card. So that's an amazing thing, and everything is working fine. And also when I turn the dark mode on, as you can see, we can be able to see all the information, the user's information very clearly. So let's go back to the VS Code. And the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create this profile card.jsx. So here we're having the main component, which is the profile card, and also we're having the sub component. So I'm going to get into this, what it is. But in here, as you can see, there are sub components, the profile header, the personal details, and the scales section. And uh, just to avoid creating a lot of files in here, because it's not a very long file, so I decided to just put the subcomponents in here. And of course, to be able to use this component, we need to go to the page.tsx at the, sorry, we need to go to the actual route page.tsx, and we need to call this profile card. And as you can see, we're having this div with these utility classes. So here, as you can see, we're using the grid display, because we're going to have another element in here to be able to show the search bar and all the job listing. So that's why I did this grid. And also, as you can see, I added this background color state because I want this part to have this slate color. And to be able to do this, first we need to deconstruct the theme state from the use theme, and when the actual component is or whenever the theme changes, the actual background color state is going to be changing depending on the theme. So if it is dark, we're going to use this color, this utility class color. Otherwise, we're going to use this color. And whatever that we're having inside the background color, we're going to use right inside the class name by using these backticks to make this variable working inside this class name. So now let's go to the profile card. So inside the profile card, we have many code here. So the first thing that we need to extract and we need to get the information from the user state. So as you can see, we are going to deconstruct this users store hook that we created. And the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to actually run this code whenever the actual user is updated. So we're going to extract the item, retrieve the user from the local storage. And here, if the start user is not null, then we can be able to access to this. And here we're going to parse this, meaning that we're going to convert it from string to an object to be able to use it inside JavaScript. And then we're going to use the job schema. So this job schema, it's going to help us to really validate the schema that we got from the parsed user from the local storage with the type that we created, which is user. So this is where Zod comes very handy instead of creating the type guards function, which is going to make your code a little bit cluttered. So Zod, it's going to make things easier by using the parse method. And of course, we're going to put inside of it the object that we just parsed from the local storage. And here, after that, we are going to validate the or update the user by using the set user state. So, and here, as you can see, we are going to use the skeleton. So when the user is null, whenever the user is null, meaning that if when we are waiting the data to come from the database, we are going to show the this skeleton just to show to see the skeleton. For example, when I click on the exit page, so we can't be able to see it because it runs very quickly. But when we are going to start working with the database, so it's we're going to have some lagging time, which will show us the skeleton that we created in here. So after that, when the user is loaded, then we can be able to show all of these elements inside the profile card.tsx. So again, we are going to pass inside of each component the user object. So let's go to the profile header. So first we need to define the prompt, as you can see, and here, as you can see here in the GSX, we're going to use the user.name.slice inside. So let me go in again to have this letter like this. So we're going to put it inside this div, which is going to be rounded, fully rounded. And we're going to use the user.name and the user.role. So for the personal component, which is this part in here, so we are going to get the user. So we can be able to create a state to be able to extract all of these elements. But for here, because we are going to use the details array, what we're going to do, we're going to use each property and we're going to assign it to the value property of each object. Like for the value here, so we're going to use the user that seniority level. So the same for the experience. But here for the employment type, because it's an array, we're going to use the join method so we can have it like this with the comma between each employment type. And then we're going to use whatever that we're having inside the details area, and we're going to map through each element. And for each element, we are going to show the icon, the label, and the value. And finally, for the skills section, so here we're going to use the user.skills.map because skills is a map function, and we're going to iterate through each element, and we're going to use the badge functional component from shadcn to actually show each skill. So this is how we can be able to create this profile card very easily. So the next thing that we are going to be adding is the component to search and filter the jobs. So after we created the profile card component, the next thing that I added, as you can see, is this component to be able to search and also to be able to filter the jobs from the job listing. So as you can see here, when I click on the filter button, we can be able to toggle or hide all the elements if we want to. And also when I click on one of these elements, as you can see, we are we're going to have all the elements that we selected above. And the same thing if we do for the applicant, and we can be able to delete them, as you can see. So this is what we're going to be creating. And so let's go back to the VS Code, and I'm going to start from the the page.tsx, which has the job board functional component. So here, to be able to add this, or where we're going to be adding this component under the profile card component. So since in this parent div we're using the grid and the grid column, so these two elements are going to be next to each other because of the grid display. And also to be able to actually modify the height or the width of each part. So we're going to use inside the brackets one fr, and meaning that this is going to take that width, and for the remaining width, it's going to take 3fr. So now we're going to go to the job list section. So I'm going to show you what is in here. So here we're having just the job filter bar. So I did so because we're going to be adding another component under this component, which where we're going to be showing the list of all the jobs. So the job filter bar is uh, inside the components folder. So I didn't talk about this structure that I did. So I created this job list section folder, and inside of it, we're going to have the components folder, and we're going to have the job list section .tsx, which is the main file of this section. And inside, we're going to have the components. So inside the components, we're going to have the job filter bar. And since the job filter bar, it's going to have child components, and to avoid having the uh, a lot of code in here and to make things organized and clean. So what I did, I created a folder called job filter bar where I put all the child component that we're going to be using inside the job filter bar. So to make sure that the code is readable. And so this is the code, but before I jump into the code, because we're going to be working with many states inside these components, so I decided to create, to use zustand as a state management to be able to do this. So I created this use search filter store. So it's going to have all of these states, as you can see, and this is basically just the structure of this custom hook. And for the search query, so it's going to be a string. So we are going to be storing um, what we are typing inside the search bar, the checked job type. So whenever we are checking the elements, just to show you this inside the console log. So uh, as you can see, when I check on the type elements, so we're going to have the array. So I log this out just to show you how things are working. So when I check on the contract, so it's going to be stored inside the check job types array. So this is the area where we're going to be storing the actual elements that we are checking inside the job types section. So the same thing that we're going to do for the checked applicants. So we need a place we're going to be storing the elements. And here we are going to these are the areas that we are going to be used to be able to actually map through and work with in this section. And these are just the setters to be able to update the elements whenever we are checking on the element that we want, and this for updating the search query state that we're having in here. So this is basically the structure of this use search filter store using zustand. And this is where zustand comes handy without having to create or use the context API provided by React, which has a lot of boilerplate code, and it's going to make things even worse, and it's going to take you a lot of time to create. But with zustand, it's very simple and straightforward. So once I showed you the use search filter store, then as you can see now we are going to be able to use them in here. So those are the imports that we're going to be using. So so let's start by the open filter option. So this we're going to be using to be able to just toggle or hide this part or not. So Eventually, we need a state to be able to do so. And if we go to this GSX, so we're having this button, as you can see, the filter button. So when we click on it, so we are going to update the open filter options by using the set open filter option. And actually, to be able to toggle this on or off, we're going to just use this instead of using true or false. So this is going to be opposite what has been stored inside the state. So if it was true, it's going to be false and vice versa. And here, as you can see, we are going to deconstruct our use search filter. So there is no need to use this in here or to duplicate the use of the use search filter store. So I'm going to delete this. And also, I think that I need to add a comma in here. Sorry for this. So here, as you can see, we are calling all of these elements. So the reason why, because we're going to be using them in this part. So this part, if I add the border class name just to show you what's happening into the DOM and to refer this into the DOM. So this is the part that whenever we are checking, we're going to show the elements that we check. So if I uncheck this, as you can see, so it's going to be deleted from here. So here, as you can see, we're going to use two areas, the checked jobs types that I showed you inside the console log, and also the checked applicants. And we're going to map through each element, and we're going to use the single filter component. And as you can see, we're going to use one single component to be able to render each element that we actually checked. So we're going to pass inside the single filter component the label, which we're going to be using to be able to render each element apart. And this part is for cleaning things up. So we're using the turning operator. Before, we need to make sure that the length of the checked job types is more than 0. And also, I think that I need to add this the same for the checked applicants as well, because I noticed a problem when the all the elements related to the checked applicants were checked. So when I unchecked all the jobs types, so the clear button wasn't rendered. So that's the reason why I had this problem. So here we're going to have this button. So whenever we click on it, so we're going to actually clear all the elements inside these two areas. And so here we're just using this logic. So if the open filter options state is true, then we're going to show this component that I'm going to explain. So now let's go to the single filter component, which is, so if I add as I did, and by the way, that's a tip that I use when I'm building UI components just to know how things are looking into the DOM. I use the border to be able to see them. So here, as you can see, when I added the border, or let's add the something that we can see. So if I add the background as a red, so this is the part that I'm talking about, which is the single filter component. So let me delete this. So here, as I showed you, the single filter component is going to accept the label as a string. So since we're going to use the same component for two arrays, so here, as you can see, but I'm going to start from the bottom, from the GSX, then I'm going to go all the way up to not get overwhelmed. So this is the batch that we're going to use. So we're going to use the label that we passed from the parent component. And here inside the onClick event listener, we're having this unfilter function, meaning that when we click on this button, on the close button, so sorry for this, I need to actually change this because I added this modification, but whenever I click on this, this is going to be triggered. And since we are using the same component for two areas, so here we want to check if we clicked is related to the job types array or the applicants array. And here we're going to use these helper function as you can see. So we're going to use these. They are going to return true or false. So to be able to know this, so this is what we're going to do. So we're going to use the label and we are going to map through the all job types options. So if the label is in this area, it means that we are checking or unchecking the element that is related to the jobs. So it's going to return true. And the same thing that we did for this function related to the applicant's job. So this is how we are going to use this safely. So if this is related to job types, this is going to be actually used, and we are going to remove it from the array. And the same thing for the applicants array. So hopefully that you understood how this is working. So, and lastly, I'm going to go to the filter options. So the filter options are related to rendering like these elements as I showed you or as I did. So I'm going to add inside the class name the border utility class. So as you can see, so this part is for the job type component, and the part that is underneath it is related to the applicant functional component. So what these are doing, we are just actually rendering each element. So as you can see, we're having this for the full-time, the part-time, the freelance, and the contract. So normally I need to use a map function to be able to do this to make things like less uh, like so we don't have a lot of code inside the return function, but just to be able to understand this. So as you can see here inside the full-time part, so we're having the on-click event listener, and so when we click on it, we're going to actually trigger this function, and we're going to pass the full-time parameter. So when we click on this, as you can see, we are going to just update the checked job types to be able to update this actual area. So this is what we're going to use to be able to do this, to be able to eliminate or add the thing that we checked inside the checked job types. So, and we're going to do the same thing for the all the elements that we're having in here. And the same thing that we're going to do for the applicants. So, as you can see, for each element, we're going to use this for each elements that we want to check. And for the checked property inside the checked box component from shadcn, so we are going to know if this checked or not by using the checked applicant.include, and we're going to see if this is inside this area. So if it is inside this checked, it's going to be true, and we're going to have it like this for this part. So this is basically the logic that I did to be able to create all of this. As you can see, it is a little bit complex to create, but it's going to challenge you to really uh, actually exercise your React skills. So after we created the search bar and the filter component, the next thing, as you can see, I added this to be able to show how many jobs that we're having, and also the actual drop down to be able to sort by popular or recent jobs. So when I reload the page, so when we are waiting for the data to uh, to be fetched, so we're going to have the skeleton. Then after having all the data, then we can be able to show how many elements or how many jobs in this part. So let's go back to VS Code. So as you can see, so this is the new component that I added in under the job filter bar component. So if we go to this component, so this is the GSX. So we're going to have this part to be able to show how many jobs. So as you can see, I added inside uh, another functional component just to make things organized. And here for the sorting, so we're going to have the span uh, showing the sort by and also the sort and drop down that we created, and we use shadcn for this. I'm going to show you how this component has been created. But now, as you can see, we're having this function, and here, so we are going to use these use jobs store. So this is a custom hook that I created. So this is where we are gonna organize all the code related to jobs by using zustand. So since this array is gonna be used by multiple components, so this is where we're gonna use state management to be able to solve this instead of using prompts. So and you can use any state management that you want. So this is the structure of the use job store. So we're having the all jobs to be able to store the jobs. We're having the set all jobs, and we're having the fetch all jobs function, which is gonna return a promise of an object of success. So either could be true or false. And this is the fetch all jobs function. So it's just a promise like I did for the user. So after 1700 milliseconds, then we're gonna return this mock jobs array, and we're going to update the all job state, and then we're gonna return the success as true. Otherwise, we're gonna return success as false. So now in the data folder, so we're having the user data.js. So this is the actual static data that we're going to use first before we can move on to the actual database, of course. And this is the structure, as you can see. And sorry, I want to say the jobs data. So this is the structure of the jobs data. And this is the interface. And here we are using union types, and we're defining the types of the job type, as you can see in here, and then we're going to use it for the job type, and this job type is going to be an array. So, and those are the objects inside the mock jobs, as you can see. So let's go back to the user job store or the job sort bar. So here this is how we are going to render this thing. So when the all jobs is null, as you can see, it can be either null or an array of jobs. We're going to show the skeleton. Otherwise, when the all jobs is loaded, then we are going to show the length. So this is how we are going to render this. So now uh, let's go to another element to be able to fetch or use the fetch all jobs that I just showed you. So how we can be able to do this, so you can the all jobs not be null and have all the data that we want. So if we go to the, so let's go to the page.tsx or the job board, sorry. So I want to go to the job board route. So I was looking for it because, as you can see, we're having many files in here. So to be able to fetch this, so we're going to use the fetch all job and the all jobs from the use job store. So this is, as I said, where uh, the state management comes very handy. So here we can be able to access to these two elements, and we're going to create this use effect hook, and the all jobs, it's going to be an array dependency, and if the all jobs is null, we're going to actually called the fetch all jobs. So when this is called, basically, if we go back to the use job store, so we are going to update the all jobs like this. And this is where we are going to get the information. So when the all jobs area is not null, so we are going to access it from here by using this hook, and we are going to render based on the actual state of the all jobs. So if we go back to the page.jsx, I want to just complete what is happening in here. So if the result is false, meaning that something went wrong, then we're going to show this console log. So we are calling this or using this to be able to call this whole function. And this is basically how we can be able to fetch the data. So now let's go to the actual dropdown. Inside the dropdowns folder, so I created a new dropdown, which is the sorting dropdown.tsx. And here we're using another custom hook, which is the use sorting dropdown store. So and I created it in here. So it's if we go to it, so as you can see, it is a very simple custom hook. So we're having the open sorting drop down to be able to open out the drop down, the sorting option, and the set sorting option to be able to update the state, and also the set open sorting dropdown to be able to update this state. So let's close this and let's go back to the sorting dropdown. So we're going to call all of these elements from this hook. So we're going to use this inside the open state, and also this set open sorting inside the open change property. And inside the button, so we are going to show the element that we selected. So if the sorting option is equal to popular, so we're going to show the popular jobs. Otherwise, we're going to show the jobs, the recent jobs. And here, when we click on the any of the elements. So we are going to actually render or call the onValue change to be able to call this simple function to change wherever that we clicked on inside the set, uh, inside the open sorting dropdown. So this is basically how we can be able to create all of this. So finally, we added the listing or the job listing. So this is the design of each card. So it is pretty clean and really beautiful to look at. So here we're having the icon, the name, and the name of the job title or the job title, the name of the company, and also some tags, and also the description. And also at the bottom, as you can see, we're having the location, the employment type, how many days are left, and how many people applied to this job. So, and also as you can see, we're having this uh, is the opacity of this card is a little bit too low because what we're going to do for the elements that we are going to what the user will bookmark, they're going to be like this just to know which one has been bookmarked or not, or has been applied, sorry, or not. So we're going to work on this logic, but for now, I want to just show you the code that I use to be able to actually show all of these cards. So if I reload the page, so we're going to have a skeleton for this, waiting for the data to be fetched from the database. So as you can see, things are looking pretty professional and good, instead of just having a blank space in here waiting for the data to be fetched. We need to add a skeleton. So this is what the modern application use nowadays. So let's go back to the VS Code. So we're going to start from the job lists section. So we're having this job list functional component that I added. Of course, we need to create the file of it. So this is the file, the job list.tsx. So as you can see, so this is the code. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to call the all users, or we're going to deconstruct our hooks to be able to use the all jobs array and the user array. So if the all jobs and the user or the all jobs or the user are null, then we're gonna show this skeleton. So we're gonna create an array by using the array function, and then we're gonna map through each element, and then we're gonna import this job card skeleton. So this is the actual functional component. So as you can see, that's gonna follow pretty much the same structure of the card that we created. And when these one of these or these are not null, meaning that we loaded all the data, then we can be able to show uh, to to go to this part and show all the jobs. So we're going to use the all jobs from the custom hook. Since that it is not null, then we're going to iterate through each. We're going to call the job card functional component. So the job card functional component, it's, you can see it is a little bit heavy. So that's why I added it inside the job list folder. So first, the prompt, we need to add the prompt since we used in the parent component. As you can see, we are going to pass each element from the job inside this functional component. And to be able to make this functional, we need to add the prompt in this functional component. So I'm going to get into this while we're created it. So basically this function is going to calculate the days left, and this is the actual GSX. So we're having the card, which is the print div or the main div. And here, as you can see, based on the is applied, so if it is true for this, for the object or for the job, we're going to use this opacity and the this utility class, which is the border. And to be able to know this, so what we're going to do, we're going to use the data from the user. So if we go back to the user's array or structure, so let's go to the data. So as you can see, we're having, so that's why we added the applied jobs property as an array. So based on the ID that we're having or the ID of the post that we're having, we're going to know if the user has applied to this job without changing the data inside the job. So we want the job to stay intact and we want to find a way to be able to know what the user did to the job, whether applied or bookmarked as well. So we are doing the same uh, logic as you can see. So these IDs are the IDs of the job of the jobs as I explained. So this is what we're gonna do in here in the job card. So we're gonna use the sum function to know if the actual job ID that is coming from the parent component is equal to the element that is inside of the applied jobs property array. So if it is true, so this is going to be true, and then we are going to use this utility class to make the actual card look like this. And just to show you how things are working to understand more, so if we log out and log in with another account, so as you can see in here, we're going to have another card that is applied. And so that's the how to be able to actually create this logic without changing the jobs data. So for the remaining GSX, so this is for the job icon, this is for the job details. So we're just using the properties from the job prompt and we're putting them in the GSX to make it look like this. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. So the jobs tags, as you can see, we're going to iterate through each jobs since the tags is properties in the array, and we're going to use the batch component from shadcn. So when we turn the dark mode on, so we don't have to do any modifications inside the class name and to save some time. And finally, we're having this for the job meta info or metadata at the bottom of the job card. So the next step that we're gonna do is we need to make these functionable when we bookmark the actual card, and also we need to make the search functionable, the filtering as well functionable, and the sorting functionable as well. So after we added the job lists, now the functionalities that I added is to be able to bookmark the actual job, but also to filter. So when I click on this icon, as you can see, we're going to have a loading spinner, and we're going to have this toast notification, and the actual job has been bookmarked. And the same thing if I click on again, so I'm gonna unbookmark the actual job. And also the filters, so they are working successfully. As you can see, when I click on the full-time, so I want to just have the full-time jobs. So it's going to give me only the jobs that has or that have the full-time. And also it's going to work for the how many applicants. So I want to just show the actual job that has the range between the applicants between 50 and 100. And if I want to be from 50 to 1 to 200, when I click on it, as you can see, I'm going to have different results because for these jobs that we are having, as you can see, we're having only the jobs that are between the 50 and the 200 range. And when I click on the clear all, as you can see, all the filters are gonna be gone. And so everything is working successfully. So let's go back to the VS Code, and I'm gonna start from the user store. So I'm gonna start talking about this update user data we're going to be using to be able to update the user object whenever we are bookmarking the actual job as I showed you. So when we bookmark the job, we're not going to change the object of the job. We are going to add the job in the bookmark jobs property in the user object. So we need to have a function to be able to update the user. So this is what this function does. So it's going to accept the user as a prompt, and it's going to be an async function since it's going to return a promise. And here we are going to just so after 2 seconds, we are going to update our user like this by using the set function from zustand, and then we're going to return the object success. Otherwise, we're going to return as false. And finally, we are set the loading update as false. So now let's go back to the job list. So inside the job list, as you can see, we're having too many functions to deal with the filtering and the sorting, but we're going to go over uh, each of them step by step. So here, as you can see, I added the search query, the checked job types, and the checked applicants to be able to work with, as I showed you when I added the filters. And we're having also the sorting option. So I already, no, I didn't show you how to be able to sort this. So first we're having this helper function to be able to calculate if the number falls between the range that we want to filter by. And finally, here, sorry, we're having the function to be able to do the filtering. So this for the search query, this for the job type filter, and this is for the applicant's range filter. And as you can see, we're going to use the isInRange helper function that we created above, and we're going to return whatever results that we're having, and then we're going to use whatever that we're having as a result inside the filtered jobs. We're going to use it inside the sort function, and we're going to rely on the sorting option. So if it is recent, we're going to return this, otherwise we're going to return this, and we're going to use the sorted jobs array, and we're going to put it in here inside the return function. So this is basically how things are working. So if nothing has been in the array, we're gonna return this since this is has a length of 0. And also I'm gonna show you how to be able to bookmark each job. So here also I added some functions. So I added this update user data that I just showed you. And also I added this toast from the use toast to be able to show the toast whenever we bookmark or unbookmark the actual job. And also in here we added the updating job ID. So we're going to use this inside the GSX. So when we click on this and waiting for updating the user, so we're gonna have the spinner that I showed you, and to avoid spinning all the elements in here, so that's why we added this updating job ID, which is going to be null or string. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do this state, to use this states. And here we're having this state is bookmarked to know based on whether the actual ID, job ID inside the bookmark job property. So if we go back to the user data, so let's go to the user data. So we're going to check if the actual ID of the job inside this bookmarked jobs. So this is what we're doing. So depending on the result, so this is going to be either true or false or undefined depending on the state of the user. So here, so we're having this function. So this toggle bookmark function, it's going to be in the button, in the onClick event listener of this button, which is this button. So here, depending on the state of the is bookmarked, we're going to return the icon. So this is for when the icon is bookmarked, and this is for when the icon is unbookmarked. So when I click on the toggle, and this is for the loading spinner. So as I showed you, so we're going to depend on the updated job ID. So when it is null, we're going to show this. Otherwise, when this state is going to be changing inside this function, it's going to be a string, then we're going to show these buttons, these bookmarked buttons, depending on the state of the is bookmarked. So now let's go to the toggle bookmark function. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to check if the user is null. So if it is null, we're going to exit this function. Then we're going to update the updating job ID. And then here we are going to update the bookmark. So we're going to use the filter function depending on if it is bookmarked. If it is bookmarked, meaning that we need, when the user is clicking on it, we need to delete this job ID from the bookmarked jobs property inside the user. So we're going to use the filter function. Otherwise, we're going to be adding it inside the bookmark jobs property of the user object. And then we're going to call this update user data from the use job store. So as you can see here, we're using the await keyword since this is an async function. And then we're going to update the bookmark jobs property of the user. So if the results is success, since this is going to return, as you can see, a Boolean. So if it is true, we're gonna show this toast. Otherwise, we're gonna show this toast. And in here, we're using the backticks and uh, based on and the turning operator based on the state of the is bookmarked. So if it is true, we're gonna show the bookmark word. Otherwise, we're gonna show the unbookmark word. And the same thing that I did for the description. And finally, we're gonna set this as null. So this is basically how you can be able to do the filter and the bookmark, which are the main features of this application. And I think that everything are working smoothly. So the next thing that I'm going to be adding is when we click on the job. So we need more information so that the user can apply this. So we're going to create a cheat dialog from shadcn that's going to be open up from the right to be able to access to this information. So after we created our filtering system, the next thing that I added is the dialog sheet. So when I click on, for example, let's click on this job post. So as you can see, I'm going to have all the details about the post that I want to apply for. And if I click on the apply for job, so we're going to have this loading spinner. And as you can see, this this changed to the remove the application. And if I go back to the main page, so this it's going to be shown like this, just to let the user know that this has been applied. And also when I click on remove the application, so as you can see, we can be able to see or the actual job, it's going to return to its default opacity. So let's jump back to our Visual Studio Code, sorry. And the first thing that I'm gonna start talking about is are two things. The first thing is this use open sheet store. So this state we're gonna use to be able to open or close the sheet since we're gonna use it from shadcn. Just so whenever we are clicking, for example, on this button, or in this post, for example, the title of this post, this is going to be turned to true, and we're going to use this inside the actual sheet to be able to open the actual sheet. So I'm going to show you how we can be able to use this custom hook. And the next thing that I added is this selected job property. So this is where we're going to be storing the element that we clicked on. So for example, when I click on this, as you can see, we're going to have different information that are related to this actual post. And to be able to make this happening, we need to store the element that we clicked on or the job that we clicked on into a state, and this is what we're going to use. And also we are going to use its own setter to be able to update the main state, which is the selected job. So after I showed you this, then we are going to go to the actual component. So here, um, as you can see, I created this folder called job sheet. So we're having the main component. So first we make sure to install the sheet component from the shadcn. And here, as you can see, we're going to use the open job sheet and the set open job sheet from the custom hook. So we're going to use them inside these properties, in built-in properties and the sheet component. So when this is going to turn to true, this is going to trigger the state to change to true as well, and the sheet is going to be shown. And whenever we are changing this state, so this is going to be applied as well. And here we're gonna, so we're having the sheet title, which is this part, and then we're going to render from another component the company job section. Uh, so this is the job company section. So it is a pretty lengthy code as you can see. So I'm gonna try my best to explain everything in here. So the first thing, as you can see, we are going to create these states. So for this is client state, so the reason why I did so because I had a hydration problem. So to be able to fix this with Next.js, and if you have any hydration problem with any components, since it is external components from shadcn, sometimes you could have these problems. And to be able to fix this, so here, as you can see, we're going to create these two states. And as you can see, we're having this use effect hook. So only when the component renders and complete its rendering cycle, then we're going to update the isClient as true. But first, it's going to be null. So when it is going to be true, then this return function is going to be called. So this is how we can be able to fix this hydration problem with Next.js. So now let's go to the system that I created to be able to show the post that we collect on. So we're going to have the selected job from the use job store, And here we are going to import or to deconstruct all the elements that we're going to be using to be able to update the user object. As I showed you when I click on the apply job, so we need to update the user object. And here we're having this is job applied state that using. We're going to be using in this use effect hook. So the first thing that we're having this use effect hook. So if the selected job and the user are not known, then we can be able to update if this actual job has been applied or not. And here we're going to access to the applied jobs property from the user object. And we're going to see if the ID that is from the selected job that we clicked on is equal to the ID that is inside the array of the applied jobs property. So, and then we are going to, because this is going to be either true or false, then we're going to update the is job applied. So the reason why we're doing so, as I showed you, when I apply for a job, for this job, for example, so the opacity, it's going to be like this. So first we need to know whether the actual job has been applied, and we're going to use this state uh, so we're going to use the state down here to be able to know if this has been applied. Um, so if we search for this state, so let me search. So this is how we're going to use it. So we're going to use it, sorry for this, we're going to use it for to be able to either show the remove the application or the other text which is apply for a job. So we're going to use it inside the button. So let's go back up and let's continue our code. And this function is going to be for the apply job function. But first, I want to show you very quickly the JSX. So this is the card header, and this is the content. And finally, at the bottom, we're having the button. And as you can see, we're using each type from the selected job into it into the uh, uh, into the GSX to be able to show the information organized like this. But so all of these things are very simple to handle. So now I'm going to show you the function, the applied job function whenever I click on the button. So let's go back to this function. So first we're going to make sure that if these two variables are null, so if they are null, we're going to exit the application. So we're going to check if this actual job has been applied by using the sum method. So if it has been applied, we are going to actually update the applied jobs area inside the user jobs, and we're going to use the filter method to be able to delete it from the property area. And here we are going to use if update job applied. So if it is the case, then we're going to be adding uh, the actual job that we applied. So we're going to add it inside the applied jobs array, and then um, we're going to call the update user data function from the use user store. So we're going to use the await keyword since it is asynchronous and it is a promise. So and if the result that success is true, then the set job applied it's going to be false. Otherwise, if it has not been applied, then we're going to be adding the new job object, and we're going to use again the update user data, and inside the applied jobs, we're going to add this. So we are using the three dots just to not lose the remaining elements, and in top of it, we're gonna add the new applied job to this array. And then we're going to set the job applied as true. So this is basically how we can be able to create this. And so uh, our main page of our application is kind of completed. So the thing that we're going to jump into is the edit profile. So for example, when we click on the edit profile, we're going to have a dialog to be able to show all the elements from the user. And if the user wants to update its information, he can or she can. So now when we click on this avatar and we click on the edit profile, so we're going to have this actual dialog to be able to modify the profile or the information of the user. So we're going to use the same elements or the same inputs and drop downs that we used in the multi-step form. So there is uh, any change from that. And one thing that I'm gonna do for this dialog, so I'm not gonna use the dialog from shadcn because I had a trouble to be able to open it up from a drop down. So I had to do things manually. But of course, these components that we're using in here are from shadcn, except this one we're going to use as we did for the multi-step form, the numeric format library to be able to handle the formatting for the amount for us. So it's not functioning yet, but I want to just show you the structure and the logic that I did to be able to actually create this. So let me delete all of these tables and I'm going to start everything step by step to show you what I did. So let's make this bigger. So one thing that I'm going to start with is the use profile dialog store. So we are going to create our opening state. So the same thing that we did for the open sheet store. So after that, if we go to our folder explorer, here I created this profile dialog folder. So the profile dialog.tsx, so it's the main component of our dialog, as you can see. So this is the component, and here we are going to set all of these utility classes by ourselves to be able to make this centered as well. So as you can see, I'm just using the card or a simple card component rather than using the dialog component and all of the sub or child components. So I'm going to use the card component, but to make it centered, since we are going to use the fixed position, so we need to add all of these elements. So here, so this is the card header. So as you can see, and we're using the set open profile dialog because we are going to rely on the open profile dialog state to whether we're going to show the dialog or not. And the main thing in here inside the card content component, as you can see, we are going to organize the components like this. So instead of putting all the components in one file where it's going to make it even cluttered and not organized, to be able to organize things, we are going to move each component it's in its own file. So this is what I did, as you can see. So I created the components folder and I put every component in each own separate file, so you can be able to add the logic in it and just keep this for other things like the use form hook that we did that we used for the multi-step form. So you saw all the logic that we used and the code that you used to be able to handle all of these inputs. So I'm going to go through each component very quickly. So because we're going to, I did use the same inputs for the multi-step form. So just to recap, so the full name component, so we're having a simple input for the employment type. So we're going to use the same logic that we did for the employment type in the multi-step form. So as you can see, it is the same logic. So once we are going to start with the library React hook form, so we're going to be adding other code to be able to actually track what's we selected inside the input. So the experience, so the same thing here, we're going to use the select component, the salary as I showed you, or as I said. So we're going to use the numeric format component from this library to be able to handle the formatting and the seniority level. So we're going to use the same logic and the same for the skill. So I just copied and paste all the components from the actual multi-step form folder. So normally, and the best practice is uh, I don't have to, or I must not duplicate this code. I need to use one code that is reusable and use it in here. But that's going to make things even complicated, especially for people just starting out. So that's why I decided to duplicate this code and create the same elements in another folder and use it in this dialog. So that's why I did so. So to be able to open this up, since we did this manually, so here what we're going to do, we're going to go to the page.jsx of the job board route. And here, as you can see, we're going to use the open profile dialog inside the turning operator. So if it is open, we are going to show this div, which is this black, this soft black layer underneath the dialog. And we're going to show the actual dialog that I showed you. So this is how we are going to show this dialog. And of course, we need to deconstruct the use open profile dialog to access to the state so you can be able to use it down inside the GSX. And this is basically how I can we build this dialog. So as you saw, so I just went through all of these elements very quickly because I created them in the multi-step form at the beginning of this video. So that's why I did so.